Thank you guys for being here. I wanted to introduce the panel guests here. Scout Underhill is the creator of the new graphic novel series, DnDoggos. Inspired by their real-life pets, DnDoggos follows the dice-rolling adventures of these dogs, Pickles, three dogs, Pickles, Tonka, and Zoey. Mm-hmm. Scott began publishing DnDoggos as an online comic before turning the comic into a middle-grade graphic novel series that is now published by Fywell and Friends. And the first volume's out. The second volume will be out in 2026?
Yes, February. So it is available for pre-order.
So pre-order it now. And Scott Kurtz, a longtime friend of mine, I've known Scott for 25 years now, is the Eisner Award-winning cartoonist of the online comic PvP in the new graphic novel series, Table Titans Club, which is a story about a girl, Val, a precocious and imaginative kid who takes on the challenges of making new friends at a new school. Hijinks ensue. In 2013, Scott began publishing Table Titans as a spin-off to his comic PvP. In 2023, Holiday House began publishing a middle-grade version called Table Titans Club. Volume 2, again, will be around that same time.
March 5th,
in
also available for pre-order.
Yeah.
Also available for pre-order. And I am Steve Hamaker, colorist of Bone. Some of you know me from that, and also Table Titans. I created an online comic called PLOX about people that play mainly World of Warcraft, but also there's some Dungeons & Dragons stuff in there. And so there's a, let me actually click through these. I was supposed to click through these, but. So this is I wanted to show, let me just show some of this art because it's amazing. And then I want to ask some questions of you guys. So let me just get right into it. So Scott, I wanted to find out from you, like, how you got started with this original iteration of it.
So the story really goes is that I hate mornings. So one morning, all the dogs were sleeping in my room, those 4 dogs. Pickles, now this was 2017, so they were younger. Magnus is 15 now.
Wow.
But he was sleeping on the bed. He's wonderful, just sleeping. He would sleep in the mornings, and then Pickles and Tonka were the youngest, and they started wrestling. It was loud. I got up to kick them out of the room. Zoey got up thinking it was time for breakfast. She got locked out of the room as well, and I went back to bed. Magnus stayed in bed with me. And then by the time I got up and fed them and finally felt like a human, I decided, like, you know what, that would be a little bit silly if it was like a D&D scenario.
Yeah.
So the very first comic was called The Ogre, and it was basically that, is like the ogre is in the room and they're like, well, we jump around and play a lot, and they get locked out of the room and now you're super bored. And they're just like, oh. And I made it as a joke. I was just going to share it with friends and family.
Yeah.
I had a friend who was making a daily comic at the time called 4 a.m. Shower. And he tried to get me to make it daily. I couldn't do that, but I made it weekly for years.
Wow.
And it just, like, I actually found a very nice place on Reddit, which is strange, because it's Reddit.
I was going to say, that's rare.
The worst I got was when I made a joke about Gouda, and a lot of people said that's not how that's pronounced at all, and you're a bad American. But yeah, like, everyone was just really welcoming and loved it, and then yeah, I don't know. It just went from there.
So what was the process of getting finding Fywell and Friends and getting? Did you have an agent?
No.
No agent.
I had just been making it for years. My editor is Holly West. She became a fan of it during the pandemic, which a lot of people did. And then in late 2020, there was a pitch event on Twitter when it was still Twitter. And I pitched it as a graphic novel. She actually slid into my DMs and said, will you send this to me? And I said, yes, I will.
Yeah.
And then she very quickly said, I'm going to read this over the holiday break in December. And then she very quickly said, I am going to take this to acquisitions. And it went to acquisitions on January 6th of 2021.
Okay.
And she made an offer the same day.
Wow.
And then I said, can I go get an agent? And she said, yes, go ahead. And then I got my agent after that.
Okay, good.
I have an agent now. But
Nice.
yeah,
So you did the agent after that?
it was a little backwards. I had actually already queried this agent. So I had sent a follow-up email with offer received, all in caps, you know, and so she replied then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That got
exactly.
there.
But yeah, it's not like at all the way that traditionally
Right.
published books typically go. So,
Right.
but you do the work and you put it out there, and
Yeah.
I don't know, something will happen.
I mean, that's the idea of, web publishing, for Scott and I both, it was the same thing. It's put it out there and see who's,
Yeah,
Definitely.
who bites, yeah.
yeah.
And this is the cover for
Yes.
the next
Spells
book.
like my cat gets to be in it. His name is
I was going to
Toast.
say, you do have a cat.
I do have one cat. He came in out of the woods in real life and decided he wanted to live with a bunch of dogs. So
Now, does
yeah.
the cat think it's a dog?
a little bit,
Okay.
Yes, I think so.
Familiar.
He's a little weirdo, but he fits right in with the dogs. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And then moving on, just to show you guys some stuff from
This
Table
thing.
Titans, from this thing. So Scott and I were working on Table Titans as a webcomic, and it was kind of like the adult. It was an adult, not adult.
Yeah, all the characters were.
not an adult
Grown.
theme,
It was-
but
it
they were
was-
just grown-ups, yeah.
I wanted to do a fantasy webcomic, but I didn't want to do what everyone does. They do a fantasy comic because they try to be Tolkien and just get up their own butts with lore. I just wanted it to be fun.
Yeah.
And, I kept saying to myself, like when we're playing D&D and it's fun and you're cracking jokes, then I thought, I'll just do a comic about people playing D&D, and then
Yeah.
the fantasy stuff will be their game. And it ran from, 2013, right on to, we did
2018?
4 years of it, 4 or
At
5 years of
least.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it ran like 3 days a week. Then we started collecting it into books. And then when I started showing it, because we were self-publishing it, we had crowdfunded it. But I would go to shows and fans of my work would pick up the book, but then they would talk to me and they'd have a kid with them who was bored immediately. But they would pick up the book and just like read through half the book during the interaction. And I thought, I think kids would really like this book. We should show it to publishers. So we showed it to our buddy Philip Sablik, who at the time was over at Boom, and he's like, no, you shouldn't show this to comic publishers. You need to take it to there's a lot of graphic novels for kids now. And every editor that he kind of set us up some interviews. It was way out of what most people get. But he set up a couple like connections, and every one of them said, I wish this was a middle grade book, because it's really not.
Yeah.
And so that's when my wife suggested, why don't you just do another version of the book where these characters are growing up and meeting each other in junior high. And so I started drawing it, and I thought, you know what? I'm not just going to put this online. I'm going to pitch it. I'm going to try to pitch it. So I put, like Scout did, I put a pitch together, and I was showing it to other artists that have done this to kind of how do I get an agent? How does this work? How does that work?
Yeah.
And one of them is a guy who's now my good friend, Rich Moyer. He was doing a middle grade graphic novel about a pig vampire hunter called Ham Helsing, which I just thought was so funny. And he's like, can I show this to my agent? Because you're not going to have any trouble getting an agent because you're Scott Kurtz. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything at all. You're wrong. But his agent was like, oh, Scott wants to do Kid Lit? Has he got representation? And so I got my agent real easy. But yeah, so.
Well, this is my stuff. So yeah, these are just to show some. So one thing I wanted to talk about, just as for fun, and we can move around and talk about different stuff, is are you guys? What was your earliest memory of RPGs and role playing? What was your first role playing experience? Was there something that kind of?
I did play a lot of World of Warcraft.
Okay,
A
so
lot of
World of Warcraft was big. Yeah, I still play kind of a lot,
fun.
but yeah, and we play together
Oh my gosh.
occasionally.
But no, I mean, that was evil when I was a kid.
Oh,
I didn't,
really?
I did D&D and stuff. I didn't play, so I didn't start
Right.
playing tabletop role play games until 2016. So
Okay.
just a year before I started making.
Wow.
DnDoggos.
Okay. So you're like a
Very
new.
new.
You're new.
Very new,
That's good
yeah.
though. Yeah. Well, for me, it was I grew up in the late '70s, '80s, and Scott probably can attest to this too. Back when D&D was demonic, and I was a church kid, so
Yeah.
I was not allowed to do it. But we played this game because it was. It was like animal characters, so it was all about your anthropomorphic, ninja, or it could just be a guy with a gun, a ram guy with a
Right,
gun,
yeah.
or like a Wolverine with guns or whatever. So that was my first foray into it, and then we could get away with it because it wasn't fantasy. The fantasy trope thing, it just wasn't going over.
Yeah.
But Scott, I don't even know if I know what was your first like encounter with D&D or just role playing games in general.
It was my dad bringing home D&D.
Okay.
He played at work with his friends, and he introduced my friends to it. So my dad didn't really understand, because the satanic panic thing that happened was some kids had, I think unfortunately in the 80s, committed suicide, and everyone's looking.
Got hurt in the sewer.
Yeah, everyone's looking for a reason why, and so
Yeah.
anything that was in the kids' room is a reason why. But there was a big scare about D&D. My dad missed all that, and he was playing with work friends. He knew what it was.
Yeah.
He didn't have to worry about what it was. And then my cousin introduced me to advanced D&D, because the one Dad brought home was like the red box.
Yeah.
But then they came out with the books, the rules changed. And so, yeah, I was hooked because for me, it was really the closest thing I could get to with my friends to making comics, because it was like, we're going to create characters and tell stories together. That's making comics, And so I was the kid that annoyed all the dungeon masters because I wasn't paying attention because I was drawing. And so I wasn't paying attention to the game. I didn't memorize all the stats. I was kind of half playing. I was interested in the stories and the characters and the way they looked and what the lore was, and then the combat was very boring to me because
Yeah.
whenever you say roll initiative, you stop telling a story. Now it's just math. Now we're just throwing math at each other.
Yeah.
And I would just check out. And the only thing that can slow combat in D&D more is when the players check out. And so, yeah, I am the bane of many a dungeon master, because it's like, Scott, yes, I cast, what? But I also made up for it because everyone got their character's portrait drawn. I drew everybody's character, so. Yeah, for me, the two were always synonymous.
Yeah.
It really does feel like, the same thing. And when we first got our book deal, my editor said, hey, we do a weekly meeting, and when we have new authors, we Zoom them in. And I was talking to the whole company, all the people at Holiday House, and I said, I've spent 25 years sitting alone in my room making comics by myself, working with a publisher where you're working with an editor and a marketing team, and you're, like I'm sending a draft to her, and she's coming back with, I don't think this, maybe she should say this, and this is a little too harsh. And I was like, you guys, I don't know how many of you play Dungeons and Dragons, these people that work at this publisher, but it really does feel like we're playing a role-playing game here. Like it's all the same thing. We're building characters, we're forming a story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just love it.
It's just really collaborative.
Yeah,
way,
it is
which
very
like,
collaborative.
Working with this team is working with a
Now,
party.
Right.
you, I was going to ask you, and now your intro kind of answered it for me, but I always was worried that the book being about role-playing games was going to be a hindrance, because a publisher would say, well, if the kids aren't into D&D, they're not going to care about the book.
Right.
But it, now that it's, and there were some publishers, like I remember when your book is on submission, your editor is sending it out to all these editors and waiting for them to write back. And a lot of them will write back and say no, which is like a dagger in the heart. But then you see their reason, and sometimes it's just because they have a lineup of books and it doesn't really fit in with what they're doing right then, but they love the book. But, you're like, okay, Scholastic. If I get into Scholastic, man, it's just going to be, money's going to roll in. It's going to be rich. It's going to be the most popular book ever. And he updated this, he had this spreadsheet that would update, and I made the mistake of telling Google, alert me every time this spreadsheet updates.
No.
Mistake. My wife made me turn it off, so I was obsessing.
Never look at that.
But it came in, the response from Scholastic, and it said, looks great, we've passed it on to our gaming division. And I was like, oh no, why did I make it about D&D? But now that it's a book that's out, I mean, every librarian, every teacher that sees that book goes, oh my God, I have kids at school that will love this.
Yep.
So it's been a real blessing. which is so strange because when we were growing up, you hid this. You didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
No.
everyone plays it now.
Yeah.
It's great. Kids are nerdy and wonderful. Like it's just not having like that kind of stuff as a child and like seeing kids who are more accepting and more nerdy and just it's gosh, I love it. I love it so much.
And we worked with, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but we worked for a while with a group of guys in the Seattle area called Game to Grow. And they were child development people, but they loved gaming. And they started a charity using role-playing games to bring like autistic kids and neurodivergent kids like out of their shell.
Yeah.
And it became a 501c, and it was like
Nice.
they were all throughout the schools, and we helped promote them. It's really been a really cool merging of the two.
It's even kids who don't want to say anything still want to be involved. So like
Yeah.
I went to a school, like a really small class where they were playing a D&D game and I was just helping them draw their characters.
Yeah.
And the game was running and one of the kids, so small, so quiet, they were supposed to do something else, but instead they all just started fighting each other in a bar. Like throwing, like, oh, I throw a fireball at you. And it's like, okay, well, I'll punch you in the face. And they just like got into a fight. And this kid who wanted to play this like little dwarf, the DM's like, do you wanna do anything, or you just wanna sit there? And he's like, I just sit here. And he had the best time. He didn't do anything.
watched everybody fight.
He was just sitting, and like the visual in my mind of all these characters fighting and just like a little dwarf just like sitting there. It was, but he would.
That was
yeah.
his jam.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it was his jam fictionally too.
Right,
And it was like,
Yeah.
it didn't matter what he did or didn't do. He was part of the party, and
Very cool.
yeah, it was really fun.
That's crazy. It's really fun. I've got to do that too, where you draw the kids' characters. That's a kick in the pants. I have one kid. We went to there's a school library near where I live, where they have a program for homeschoolers where they get to come in like 1 or 2 days a week, so at least they're not just always at home. And they have this D&D program for them. And there's this kid. He comes up and he's like, I really liked your presentation. I really like your book. I want to role play with you. I'm like, cool. I was going to draw your character. And he goes, okay, let me tell you about my character. And I'm like, okay, well, is he a dwarf? Is he an elf? And he goes, he's an illager. And I have trouble hearing in a crowd. And I go, a what? And he goes, an illager. And I wasn't connecting it. And I said, could you describe it? And he goes, well, he's got like a square head and a really big nose. And I go, like a Minecraft illager? And he goes, yeah. And then I went, yeah, of course. Kids today, their characters are illagers. Everyone's homebrewing, of course. And one kid runs up and goes, we made a special rule for him because he wanted to be an illager. And I'm like, that's rad. And so I drew a hat on him and I go, oh, does he have a hat? And he goes, yeah, now he has a hat.
Now he has a hat.
I thought that was really cool.
Now he has a hat.
But his name was Harvey, and I was like, your name's Harvey? And he goes, yes, it is. And I said, that's a classic name. Like, you're an old soul, Harvey. And he went, yeah. Because he's a little kid.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's great.
I was terrified to go. I was bullied all through junior high, and any sight of a school, those old feelings come up. You walk towards a school, and you're like, oh, boy.
I know.
And kids, I remember walking up, and my wife like, what's the matter? And I go, they can smell fear. They smell fear. They know. Even when you're this, so big, right? And they look at you and they're like, even a kid, like a little kid, looks at you and goes, yeah, I know. I could take you out. So I'm walking past these kids, and in my head I'm like, all right, I'm super giant. I'm a big guy. I'm a big fat guy, and these kids are gonna make fun of me. And one kid goes, whoa, did you see him? I'm like, here we go. The other kid goes, yeah. The first kid goes, I bet he could beat up the principal. And I turned around and I said, where is he? You want to go? And they were like, oh! But I was really afraid to go, and the librarian said, aren't you bringing your iPad to put up on the screen? And I go, yeah. And she goes, just draw. Just draw something. And I start drawing, and then you're a rock star.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't care. Kids today are so different than when I was growing up. They don't care. They
Absolutely.
love every
Yeah.
Everyone's a custom job. They love everybody. They all take care of each other too. It's really awesome.
Well, we could just open it up to like questions and discussions, and if you guys have anything you want to ask, fire away. Go ahead.
So I work with kids. I work at a daycare, and we've got an after-school program with elementary schoolers. But right now our kids are a little bit younger, so we've only got like 6 to 8-year-olds.
Okay.
Are there any games that you guys would recommend playing with them? Because I love D&D. I figured they might be interested too.
Well, I have a very rules light D&D game that's free on my website because it ties into the book and it only uses a D20. It has like the system's a little bit different, so like the math is simpler. It has all the art and the rules and everything that you need. So you could try that if they're like dogs.
Follow-up question. So when I play D&D, I use lots of violence. I'm big on the hyper-violence. How do you dumb down combat to not be so
Violent for kids?
I want to know how you do it.
visceral?
So there's what I call the Samurai Jack rule, which is you can cut a whole army of people up with a katana if they're robots. So if a D&D group is facing a group of human bandits or elf bandits or anything kind of humanoid, and there's swords swinging around or hammers swinging around, that's probably a no-no. But if it's an ooze, or if it's a skeleton, or even if it's an ogre. Now, the thing about swords, there's not really a way to not show someone getting stabbed or cut. It's crazy. But the way I did it with this is when the original Table Titans was mostly the in-game stuff. And occasionally you jump out to the table because we were really excited, and we were lucky that we had worked with Wizards of the Coast because I was a part of a live play called Acquisitions Incorporated. And so they were fine with us making the Table Titans comic because it promoted D&D. And so they would promote the comic, and then we would make our stories kind of about what they had coming out next. So when I did this, my editor really wanted it more about the kids and their middle grade problems, and then occasionally we would see what's in the game. So I didn't have to worry about it as much. But at the first time they're in the game, they're going down a road and bandits jump out, and the bandits say, "You've stepped onto the road owned by the League of Rats. We control this road, drop your swords." And the people playing D&D who Val had just joined say, "We're the Titans, we protect this road, you drop your swords." "Oh, I'm not dropping my sword." "Well, I'm not dropping my sword." And then Val jumps in and says, because she was playing a druid, she says, "Why don't we both drop our swords and have picnics? I brought cheese." And then it cut to the table where they're like, stop trying to resolve things without violence. This is D&D. You fight with swords. You kill things. And like later, they were fighting goblins, and the mage cast a sleep spell, and the goblins fell asleep. And then it cut to the table, and Alan, this guy, goes, "Great, let's stab them. Kunk, 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 they're asleep." And Val's like, "You can't stab them. They're sleeping." And he's like, "Yeah, you can. We were stabbing them before." She's like, "Yeah, but that's when they were fighting you. Now it's murder." And he was like, "You don't know how to play D&D." So I try to make it funny. I try to make it like a thing. Because, yeah, you got to worry about like the stakes, the peril, the violence.
Right.
Once you get into YA, then you could do Harry Potter. Then trees are trying to kill kids.
Well, like, I do also think it's very different between graphic novels and like something illustrated and depicted versus like imagination.
Right.
For instance, like Wings of Fire is a very popular series that has turned into a graphic novel series. And I haven't read them totally through, but like they seem a lot less violent than in the books. These are books for middle grade kids that are like 8 to 12, and the first book dragon gets its throat ripped out and thrown off a cliff. Like, that is like the opening of that book. There also was a time I was with a friend, and he was drawing like monsters, made up monsters and stuff, and asking kids like, well, what do you think? And they're like, well, what about tentacle arms? And oh, should it be holding something? Tiny little girls like, an axe? And then all the kids were just like laser beams, axes, and we're like, why did this turn this way? Like, it wasn't even about D&D or anything.
Yeah.
But like, I don't, you kind of can go with like the flow of the children, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
You might also, like, other aspects of the D&D game include things like puzzles, mazes,
Yeah.
traps.
Yeah. There's other perils than just
There
combat.
are many ways to cause tension and fear amongst your party.
Mm-hmm.
And also mysteries.
Right.
Things can be do.
Mm-hmm.
Something
Yep.
like that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that.
Oh no, for sure. That's like.
Because you don't have to fight all the time. In fact, you can go entire sessions without lifting a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You might
Mhm.
Yeah,
want
puzzles
more
would be a
magic
good.
or
That would
Puzzles
be a
are
good way
fun.
to.
encourage dialogue, encourage parlay.
Mm-hmm.
Or
That's true
There's
too.
a
Yeah.
game, Land of Eam, that has parlay as a sequence in every round.
What's that game called?
The Land of Eam.
Okay, sure,
That
cool.
comes out of like a middle grade Dungeoneer Adventures.
Nice.
And morale is a thing that most people don't even know what it means, but it's actually in the original game, and you can just scare your enemies away
Mm.
by making yourself look really tough.
Yeah, that's true.
Very cool.
So that's another way, maybe get around the violence, or at least reduce it.
No Thank You Evil by Monty Cook Games has a mechanic called Awesome, which is a teamwork attribute.
Right.
And that's made specifically for like 6 to 10.
Cool.
Land of Eam is a little bit older.
I had that game, but I never even got to play it.
Or you can teach them all how to wield a real sword like I often do.
I like I often do.
I mean, that's an option. You might as well start teaching them how to, because the water wars are coming. Like,
The water.
they're gonna need, these kids are gonna need to know
Maybe in public schools.
fight if things keep going the way they're going.
Public schools is good.
It also depends on how old they are, but I know like in some other D&D sessions or whatever that I've done like with other people or whatever, they have like a survey at the beginning where they ask the people like what level of violence or whatever they're comfortable
Oh,
with.
interesting.
And then they just kind of do like a more simpler version of that for kids and like ask, do you want to fight or do you want to do like some sort of political thing or something like that?
To be honest, kids these days can handle it.
They can. It's the parents that can't.
It's the parents.
Yeah.
It's the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Yeah. So one of the questions that I had, because I'm also interested in developing these stories that kind of have to do both with, you know, kind of the in-game session itself as well as kind of the interpersonal interactions of the players outside of the game. How do you balance that narrative and story at the same time? When there's things going on in the world, you know, in the game and things going on in the characters / players' interpersonal lives.
Yours might be more complicated because of saying that like your editor and stuff wanted it set more in the school. Mine is that, do I want to draw another in-game panel? Like maybe I just want them talking head. You know, I want it easier for me sometimes. But okay, maybe this panel would work better. You know, in the dialogue, I don't script any of my stuff, so I just am kind of going on vibes when I'm making it. Just what the story is leading you towards, I think.
Yeah. Sometimes you can do fun things like, having things echo in both. You know, thematically, you can have your real life stuff.
Echo. Thunders.
I've done now
Dogs.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 Table Titan stories. So 2.5 when they're grown up, 2 now when they're kids. And my goal has always been for the in-game stuff they're doing to perfectly mirror what's happening in the conflict of the rest. I have pulled it off 0 times. However, secret, there's going to be a book 3, and I think finally in book 3 it's going to mirror. But the cool thing about, I think, writing for kids and stuff is they do get the subtext. I absolutely believe they're smart enough to get the subtext. But I think as long as it's fun, then that's all that really matters. Part of it in book 1 was really about kind of explaining how role-playing games work by explaining it to the character new to the game. In book 2, which comes out in March, they go to a LARP camp. And so there's not as much like in-game stuff because they don't really play D&D like sitting down role-playing. They're all up and in costume. But there's a kid at the LARP camp in book 2 named Darby who has never played D&D, and Alan asks him, if you've never played D&D, why would you sign up for LARP camp? And he's like, I don't know, sound cooler than normal camp. And so they do take him through just so that we could have kind of like an in-game thing. What I do with her, since she has such a big imagination, is it's really fun to do, is she imagines things kind of in terms of D&D.
Right.
So like when she first arrives at the school and looks up at the school, oh yeah, this is a good one.
Like
She had
this
to
one, yeah.
when she had to clean she got in a fight, so she had to clean up the boys' locker, wrestling room locker, and she imagined it as a swamp with a bog creature that she had to kill. So that's how I kind of fit the D&D stuff in, because in her, she's imagining everything kind of in that context. She's going to write stories when she gets older for sure. She's always storytelling.
The imagination is like actually how, because the first 15 of my webcomic pages, they never went like in the game. And
Right.
then I made one where Pickles, like other things were happening at the table and Pickles got bored. So she started going off on this thing where she's killing swamp marmots. And they like call her back, and then just, some feedback and friends and stuff was like, that was kind of cool. What if you did more of that? And so it just kind of
interesting.
Yeah.
snowballed from
Okay.
that, and I was like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
this is really fun. I get to kind of mess with, like, what I want, how I want it to go.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So don't get too bogged down in it. Try to have fun. Go back and forth. If it feels right, do it.
That's the best advice, I think, like, if it's fun. And, like, honestly, that was the advice that I got from a lot of people was, like, just keep making it while it's fun. If it stops being fun, like, you don't have to keep doing it. It's never stopped being fun.
Oh, good.
Like, never.
Very cool. Anybody else?
What have been some of your like inspirations or influences, like whether that's other TTRPGs you've played or like D&D podcasts or other graphic novels and comic artists?
Oh my gosh. My main answer is just real life, and I like my friends and life, and it's just so much going on that you can make into a fun, silly story. Graphic novels, I really like Garlic and the Witch and Garlic and the Vampire is very fun. I'm not going to even remember any now. What about
No?
you?
Well, I have too many influences to name, but when it comes specifically to D&D stuff, there was a comic strip that was made by a guy named Jolly Blackburn called Knights of the Dinner Table. And that's what really inspired me to do a strip where it was the first time I'd seen a comic strip or a comic where people that talked about D&D, where they were like playing D&D and had recurring characters. And it killed me. There was it was in the back of a magazine that, what was the name of the, Kenzer and Company. They made games, but they had a magazine called Hackmaster. Thank you. Yeah, they didn't play D&D, they played Hackmaster. But the characters were playing D&D, and the dungeon master says, okay, so you come across this open field, there's a gazebo, and then over here is this and this. And they go, hold on, what do you mean a gazebo? And he's like, it's a gazebo, And they're like, okay, we need to investigate this gazebo more. And they did all this, and he's like, it's just a gazebo, but they would not leave it alone. I thought that was so funny. And so I really wanted to do something similar to that in that vein. But also, I was heavily influenced by Bone, and I grew up reading a lot of European comics because my dad is a German immigrant. So my grandmother would send us comics from Germany. So I grew up with Asterix and Tintin and all that stuff. So European comics are so much better than American comics. They're so great. They're so awesome. But I loved all that fantasy stuff that came out of those comics, yeah.
I think the Lord of the Rings movies also for me, like specifically the movies, because I just watched them a lot when I was younger, and I don't remember which one it was, but my editor did basically make me take out one of my Lord of the Rings references in the second book because she said, you already have two. I was like, "It's okay."
You already
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
There's a
3 rounds it out.
yeah. There's an argument in book 1 of Table Titans when they're walking to a gaming store about whether or not Balrogs have wings. Because in the movie they had wings, but in the books they don't. And then there was a argument because it said it had a smoldering shadow behind it like wings.
Oh.
And my editor was like, I don't know, this might be too much. And I'm like, I'm not taking out the Balrog argument. 2 nerds arguing about a Balrog is 100% my friends playing D&D. Please let me leave it in. She's like, all right.
It's so funny because every kid's gonna know that.
Yeah, that was my goal.
Very cool. Anybody else?
Any other questions?
Any questions?
One other thing for you and anybody else, skills challenges. This is actually something that's taken from mythology. If you read all the kinds of mythology, instead of fights, a lot of the stories are about, hey, can I outwit you, or can I out arm wrestle you, or can I out whatever you,
Yeah.
you know, anything.
Very
Make
cool.
better cereal, whatever, I don't know. Anything.
Cool.
I think-
Just to give you
yeah.
another.
Fit more marshmallows in your mouth? Yeah.
I mean,
Have either of you been inspired much by like manga or like other overseas sort of comics from like East Asia for that?
I haven't read much in my adult comics career, which is a failing on my part. Like, I need to read more broadly, but no, not at the moment.
I was a big Akira fan, like the comic. Because when I was a kid, the Akira movie came out, and it blew everybody's mind because it was like, back then, you know, there weren't a million animated movies, and that animated movie was something that was from another planet at that, especially at that time. Still very good.
What was the movie?
What's that?
Akira?
Akira, yeah.
What was that? What's that?
Akira.
It's
It's,
an anime. Yeah, it's an anime.
You haven't seen Akira?
It's from like the 80s.
No,
It's-
I never heard of it. That's why.
80.
You've
Tetsuo
never heard of
Akira.
Akira.
You would recognize it.
You should
You would.
rent it tonight.
Rent it tonight.
Yeah.
Like now.
Yeah.
See, actually, that's why I asked, because
Yeah.
I think it said something.
All right, how about Battle of the Planets or Robotech?
Robotech was big.
Robotech
yeah,
was
yeah.
huge, yeah.
But
I know Robotech,
the comic
yes.
Okay, well, then-
was
I know Transformers,
intriguing to
but
me because
yeah.
I wanted to. I knew
Akira.
the story that
A-K-I-R-A.
Otomo hadn't finished he hadn't finished the
Google
comic
it.
when the movie
It's
came
worth a
out.
Google.
So the movie is nothing like up to a point, and the ending is completely different. Like so much so that it's like Lord of the Rings. It would be like The Hobbit, and then you find out it's actually all of Lord of the Rings. Like
What
there's so much
Akira
more.
is different.
Yes. Everything about it's different. So I discovered that, and then I read the books in the early 2000s when I was kind of first starting my own self-publishing journey. I was working for Jeff Smith and stuff, but I wasn't making my own comics yet, and I kind of like forced myself. And they're big books. There's like 6 of them, and they're like that thick, but they're so good. There's color versions out there too, which are excellent. But the black and white.
Probably has them.
Yes, the library has the black and white ones for sure. I'm sure. Yes.
I didn't answer the manga question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Manga. We'll get to you.
Well, now I forgot. I'm a huge fan of Osamu Tezuka and all of his work. So he was like the Walt Disney of Japan. So like Astro Boy, Simba the White Lion, like I loved his stuff growing up because I'm 54 years old. So I like a lot of anime that no one's ever heard of. When I started watching it, it was called Japanimation.
Yeah,
That's
same
what
here,
it was
yeah.
called. And so I had seen some of his. I grew up with Simba the White Lion, which, by the way, The Lion King is a complete ripoff of Simba the White Lion. But then when I became a cartoonist, I started to learn more about him and how he was just compelled to keep working and just how prolific he was. And then I bought this big red book, kind of history of him, and it had a DVD in the back. It was a documentary about him. His final words, as he was dying of stomach cancer in the hospital, do you know what Tezuka's final words were? "I beg of you, let me work." Because the nurses were trying to make him rest. And he just was trying to finish that last story. And I have, on a Post-it note, written down, "I beg of you, let me work," for whenever I get like, I don't want to do this today. It's like, just remember Tezuka. Like, all right, damn. But his stuff is so great. But I like all this old anime that I don't think, in manga that I don't know anyone ever knows. There's a great one, I think it was called Legend of the 12 Kingdoms. There's a big sprawling fantasy thing that involved like, there was the human race and there were a race of like anthropomorphic animals that grew off like eggs off of trees. I don't remember any of it now, but bits and pieces. Yeah, but my favorite anime from the old days is called Read or Die. Does anyone know Read or Die? It is like James Bond meets superhero, and there's one of the secret agents of this organization that is, her name is Yumiko Reedman, and her superpower is she doesn't control water or fire, she controls paper.
That's cool.
So, and she just is obsessed with books. She's reading books constantly. And she's this little woman, a little girl with her head in a book, and then something happens, and she takes her briefcase and opens it up, and all this paper flies out, and she goes, and it's a shield or a thing or a...
That's awesome.
It is, and it's got a banger soundtrack. It's got this James Bond soundtrack. Read or Die.
Wait, so how does she save the day?
Do you want me to say it again?
With paper?
With paper.
You just save it.
Like, I mean, one time she was
Like
making
waterbending with
swords out of paper, or she was making a big shield out of paper. Like, she could control it like an element.
You can shape it into anything.
And then at one point, she made a big, giant, like, origami bird they all got in, and it flew away. Like, it's crazy what she was doing.
That's cool.
And the bad guy was, I think, like a reincarnated Beethoven that wanted to erase everyone's memory of literature, because if you take away people's culture, they lose, and then he could replace it with his own culture. So like even the threat was about books. And I was just like, oh, put it in my veins. And then they did a sequel with three sisters that were paper masters, and I didn't like it as much, but yeah.
Yeah, did you have something? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much for both of you being here. It's been lovely meeting you throughout the course of CXC.
Of course.
I apologize, people were talking across, so I'm going to talk across. My person in the corner who asked a question about TTRPGs. I would love to talk to you. I teach a TTRPG builder for 6th graders to 9th graders sometimes. And honey heists and reskins of honey heists are going to be your bread and butter. And another one, if you want something a little bit more complex that children or a little bit slightly more, I'm able to sit down and focus children. A Quiet Year is really wonderful. You can take out cards that you think might be age inappropriate, but that one they can draw out their entire world. It's a really fun role building exercise.
Is that the map making one?
I'm sorry. What was the question?
Quiet Year, is that the map making one?
It's like I think some people think of it as map making. I think it is world building more or less. But people I've played with aren't artists, so maybe that's why. But yeah, if you want to connect with me, we can talk about things.
Cool.
Microscope.
This is awesome.
This is great.
We've built a community here, people.
I think so. Well, thanks, guys. We might want to wrap it up. So we got to get our stuff out of this.
Yeah, any last questions before we go?
Including an important question.
Yeah.
Are kobolds dragons or dogs?
Originally, the guy
Dogs.
in Kobolds in the Deed of the Demigods book had them set up more as dog-like.
There you go.
But they were a combination. It's a combination of a dog and a demon.
He's
But
a wealth of knowledge.
later, because of this 3rd edition and what they did with all that, they kind of transformed into a dragon.
Here's my theory.
Lore.
You know, after you own a dog for a while, your dog and you start to look alike? I think that's where it started.
Also, it's a German word, so it's actually a German goblin.
That is true.
Go ahead. Yes.
I just wanted to ask, I know that the current work you're showcasing is very D&D heavy, but I'm curious, any other TTRPGs that are kind of fit your work now, and any that you would consider shaping your work in the future?
I can not even play a consistent game of D&D. All of my campaigns have died in like a couple months. So unfortunately, because you have to play with other people. There's like,
Yeah.
you can kind of play, why would I don't, if I'm going to play it by myself, I'm going to draw comics, you know,
Yeah.
like, so I
If we
unfortunately
do
don't
if we
have
do
that.
a campaign, we'll bring you in.
Yeah, all of them have died.
Okay. We'll do something.
I played a lot growing up of everything. I played the Ninja Turtles role-playing game. That's when that Ninja Turtle role-playing game was my first introduction to Usagi Yojimbo.
Yeah.
We played everything, so
Did you have the
Mu-
STD table?
the what? Yeah, much like the black and white comic boom of the 80s, there was a TTRPG boom. So there was like a psychic powers game. We really were into Villains and Vigilantes, which was the superhero game.
That's actually
The system was terrible, but the art and
Yeah.
the feel was and the vibes were great. But then Champions came out, which was a very crunchy superhero system.
Yeah.
And then the Marvel superhero role-playing game came out. We adored it.
TSO.
TSR. TSR had all these games. Gamma World. Oh, that would be
I want to play Game
Star
Over so
Frontiers.
bad.
I know they remade it, but the old Gamma World was the best. Top
We
secret.
can
Yeah.
still get the old books and play it.
Who
Who cares?
The Marvel Superheroes role-playing game, I told Steve this story. The stats were numbers, but they also had words to it. So, it's the Amazing Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk. So all the stats were feeble all the way up through like uncanny. So it was like amazing, incredible, uncanny. But feeble was the worst. And then they described what all of it meant. And feeble strength was described, it showed Aunt May, and it was described as trouble with doors. And I was in maybe 5th, 6th grade when it came out, and I'm 54 now. But I've known my friend Rob since the 5th grade. We thought Trouble with Doors was so funny, we could not stop laughing at it. Last year, we both I was invited to the Schultz Museum, and I said to Rob, come with us. We go to a restaurant. It was a pull door I pushed, and it goes ka-kunk. And behind me, I hear, trouble with doors. So it made me want to look up and get the old Marvel superhero game, but yeah.
For sure.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys
Yeah.
for coming.
Thank you.
We're going to be up there tomorrow.
Tomorrow
so if you
all
guys
day.
want to stop
Come by, get our books.
and say hi.
And thank you so much. Great questions.